To the ones who make us proud, my dad said, raising his glass. Everyone turned toward Nathan, smiling, clapping like he'd just ended a war. Nobody looked at me. I'm Evelyn Rowe. I'm 36, and I led the mission they're toasting. But they gave him the credit. Again, if you've ever been the one overlooked, outshined, or erased from your own life story, then yeah, this revenge story might feel a little too real. I hadn't been back to Missouri in nearly a decade. Honestly, I wouldn't have come this time either if Mom hadn't said, "Nathan's speech is going to be televised. We're doing a proper celebration." Family only. Family only always somehow meant everyone but me. I drove 12 hours straight, in jeans and a plain black shirt. No uniform, no ribbons, just calluses, old boots, and a dozen scars I never showed anyone. As I pulled up to the backyard, the tent was already glowing like a wedding. White lights, BQ smoke, and lawn chairs arranged like pews. Someone handed me a paper plate. "Drinks are in the cooler. Food line's that way," my aunt said, not even making eye contact. I sat near the trash bins, sipping warm soda out of a white plastic cup, while the rest of them toasted Nathan with champagne flutes under the big tent. He wore a pressed West Point blazer, hair perfect, smile rehearsed. "I've always admired military service," he said into the mic. "Some in our family tried it, but I want to make a real difference." He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. That pause before "some" was deliberate, sharp enough to cut me in half. Everyone applauded like they'd just watched a hero rise. No one remembered the girl who once ran black ops in deserts they couldn't even point to on a map. Later, I slipped inside the house to wash my hands. That's when I noticed it. The photo, gone. The one of me in uniform. First year at Fort Liberty. In its place, Nathan, wearing a costume, a cadet's mock-up, a cheap replica of what I'd bled to earn. I asked Mom where mine went. She said, "It got dusty. I packed it away somewhere. It didn't feel right anymore." Like me. I stood in the hallway for a long minute staring at that frame. My photo, me in full uniform, first year at Fort Liberty, was gone. In its place, Nathan, wearing a prop jacket from a recruitment expo. No name tag, no earned patch, just polished hair and a Photoshop glow. I asked Mom quietly, "Where's my photo?" She blinked. "It got dusty. I put it away somewhere. It didn't feel right anymore." Didn't feel right? She said it like my life had expired, like I was a phase she'd grown out of. And the worst part? She didn't even say it with malice. Just convenience. Like I was a misplaced book that didn't match the shelf anymore. I walked outside. My soda had warmed into something sticky. Nathan was laughing, being pulled into group selfies. My dad had his arm proudly around him. They'd chosen their story, and I wasn't in it. Back in the guest room, still labeled Nathan's room, even though he hadn't lived here in years, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the bookshelf. All his trophies were still up. All my letters, gone. The ones I sent from bases across the world, written with cracked knuckles and sand in my teeth, not even a shoebox of them left. I opened the closet. The dress I wore to my West Point graduation was gone. The footlocker with my first deployment badge? Gone. It was like I'd never existed. That night, I lay awake in the dark, remembering the day I got my orders for Operation Crimson Storm. I was 29, no backup, bad intel, and 27 civilians caught between two warlords. Protocol said retreat, but protocol didn't see the faces of those kids. So I broke rank, split my unit, lit diversion flares with my bare hands. We pulled out every single one. But when I returned, no medal, no press, just a note in my file. Compromised discipline. They buried my name because I chose humanity over hierarchy. And now? My parents buried my presence too, first in the house, then in their memory. If you've ever felt like someone tried to rewrite your story with you edited out, yeah, I'd love to hear about it. Drop it in the comments. I know I'm not the only one, because sometimes the worst betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from people who say they love you, then act like you never mattered. I was halfway through a cold slice of leftover brisket when I heard my name, not from anyone at the table, From the living room tee, the network anchor's voice sharpened. Up next, an inspiring young military leader whose story of courage in the Caucasus Mountains is gaining national attention. Stay tuned. My stomach sank. There was no way. I dropped the plate, stepped into the living room, and there he was, Nathan, in a crisp gray suit, tie like a perfect stripe down his chest, clean cut, camera ready, sitting across from the host like he'd just stepped out of a campaign poster. There were 27 civilians, he said. Intel said 12. No time, no backup, so I split the team, lit flares, got them all out. Word for word, it was mine. My decision, my risk, my scars, and now, his script. My hands clenched. I wasn't angry, I was hollow. Like someone had scooped out my life and handed it to a stranger with better lighting. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. Told my story like it was bedtime folklore passed down through bloodlines. But it wasn't. He wasn't there. I was. My breath caught somewhere between my lungs and my teeth. My parents were watching, too. Dad with his usual smug grin, Mom nodding proudly. Proud. I called her the moment the segment ended. Did you see that? She sighed like I was being dramatic. Nathan's doing well lately. It's nice he's being recognized. He never served a day in combat, I snapped. He took my story. In a pause, then casually, well, sweetheart, you never really told us what you did. You were always so private. If you'd wanted people to know, maybe speak up more. My jaw locked. I had tried. I wrote letters. I called home. I came back after deployment, sat at this very table, and every time I tried to explain, they changed the subject. Too heavy. Too dark. Not now. So I learned to stay silent. But silence doesn't mean consent, and it sure as hell doesn't mean permission. I looked at the screen again. Nathan's face still paused in the background. He smiled like it cost him nothing. And maybe it didn't. He'd inherited my legacy, and didn't even have the decency to feel the weight of it. That's what cut deepest. Not just that he stole it, not just that they handed it to him, but that none of them thought I'd notice, or fight, because to them, I'd already faded, invisible, convenient, replaceable. But let me be clear, I wasn't gone. I was watching. It started with a knock on my apartment door. No one ever knocks, not at that hour. When I opened it, a man in uniform handed me an envelope. No eye contact, just a quiet, "You've been served." Inside, a formal suspension notice, allegation, unauthorized access to classified intelligence, time-stamped activity from a military-issued laptop, one I'd turned in 3 years ago. I sat in silence, fingers tightening around the letter. This wasn't random. This wasn't a clerical error. It was a hit. I powered up my encrypted backup system, pulled in Marcus Vance, one of the few people I still trusted. Former cyber intel. Quiet, brilliant, and once told me I saved his life, which meant he'd pick up, no matter the hour. Within the first hour, he found it. Access logs, biometrics. My ID used 7 times over the last 18 months to pull files on drone programs, foreign assets, classified surveillance. Problem is, I hadn't logged in once. They cloned you, Marcus said. Not just your login, full biometric profile. I stared at the screen, breath thin. But here's the kicker, he continued. All activity routes through one IP. Guess where? I didn't answer. He didn't need me to. Your parents' house. The air drained out of me. Wait, the row address? Yep. Static connection. Same one they've had for over a decade. No proxy, no masking. Sloppy, honestly. Sloppy? Or arrogant? I called Mom. No answer. Called again. Finally, she picked up, annoyed. Sweetheart, it's late. Who's been using my old tech? What are you talking about? The laptop. The one I left in the storage bin in the attic. Oh, that. Your father gave it to Nathan, said he might use it for school stuff. School stuff. I was shaking. Did you wipe it? I don't know. Maybe. Your father said it was just old files. Honestly, I didn't think it mattered. Didn't think it mattered? They handed over a military-linked device like it was an old flashlight. No clearance. No check. Just "Here you go, golden boy." And now I was the one facing federal review. This wasn't ignorance. This wasn't oversight. This was betrayal, dressed up as, we didn't know better. But they knew. They just didn't think I'd matter enough to fight back. That night, Marcus sent one final message. "Your name's been flagged in D.C., but that's not the real problem." I asked, "What is?" His reply, "They're building something around Nathan. Politicians, corporations. He's their hero now, and you're the loose end." Marcus was right. They weren't just stealing my past. They were building a future on it, without me in it. Within days, a wave of interviews, headlines, endorsements started popping up around Nathan. Next-gen military leadership, a voice of honor, rising star from a family of service. A family of service? The irony punched me in the ribs. The only actual combat vet in the Rowe household was being erased, while the political machine used my brother's polished face and borrowed story like a campaign foundation. They were writing him in as the hero and writing me out like a bad draft. I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt replaced. I went to D.C., not for revenge, for truth. I wasn't going to let my silence be repackaged as complicity. Marcus helped compile a full digital brief. Every access log from my stolen credentials, side-by-side transcripts of my field reports versus Nathan's televised stories, and most importantly, a set of internal military emails, buried deep, where my decision to delay evac in Crimson Storm had saved 27 lives, but was buried under the line. Unorthodox protocol, subject to suppression. They hadn't promoted me because I made the right call. They suppressed me because it wasn't their call. The morning of the congressional hearing, I wore a simple white shirt. No ribbons, no stars. Just clarity. As I stepped up to the microphone, I saw Nathan in the gallery row, grinning, still smug, still safe in the armor of lies other people wrapped around him. I didn't speak loud. I didn't need to. "I don't need credit," I said. "But I won't be rewritten." I led a mission that saved lives. I broke a rule to do it. I stand by that choice. Not for applause, but because honor doesn't always follow chain of command. Sometimes it walks alone. The room went quiet, the kind of quiet that makes truth echo. Later that night, I got the call. No caller ID, just a voice on the other end, gravelly, calm, heavy with command. The president. He thanked me for my courage, said the truth had reached the right people, offered me a senior command position at CENTCOM, an invitation to return, rebuild, and lead from the front. And I meant it when I said, "Thank you, sir, but I respectfully decline." It wasn't bitterness, it was peace. I wasn't here to get back what they stole. I was here to make sure no one else had to bleed in silence just to be heard. At the press conference the next day, reporters waited for a big moment. Medals, insignia, maybe some kind of reconciliation arc. I gave them none of it, just a microphone. And this. They thought I didn't fight because I didn't show up with a sword. But sometimes the sharpest blade is truth, and the loudest victory is choosing to walk away, still whole. Behind the cameras, I saw my dad. For the first time in years, he wasn't holding up a glass or a fake smile. He just looked small. And I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. It didn't happen overnight. After the hearings, after I declined CENTCOM, after the press frenzy died down and the vultures found another scandal to circle, I finally had space to think. Not about what they did to me, but about what I wanted to build next. That's how the Rowe Institute for Strategic Ethics was born. It wasn't flashy, just a renovated old courthouse in Northern Virginia. White brick exterior, creaky floors, smell of paper and purpose. No security badges, no salutes. Just questions, just thinking. We trained officers, not in weapons or combat, but in decision-making under pressure, ethical command, and resisting propaganda under political heat. We taught them to see what the system often hides, the humanity behind orders, the cost behind silence. We started with 8 students, then 20, then 100, and somehow, along the way, People began showing up not because I was the youngest general in U.S. history, but because I had stayed standing when everything tried to erase me. One morning, I stood at the front of the lecture hall. Gray blazer, boots worn to the soles, no medals, no name tag, just me. I looked out over the rows of cadets, and there, third row back, was my mother. She didn't wave, she didn't cry, she just watched, like she was seeing me for the first time. Not as the version she wanted, but as I was. I spoke plainly. I used to think victory was applause. That recognition meant the world finally saw your worth. But the truth? Sometimes the real win is continuing to live by your values, even when no one claps for them. One cadet raised his hand, young, honest eyes. Do you regret not forgiving your brother? I let the question hang in the air. Then I said, forgiveness is a gift, not a guarantee. It's something you offer when it's safe to, and sometimes you protect yourself by not handing it out like candy. But I do hope he learns, because silence hurts more than failure ever could. When class ended, I stayed behind, picking up a few notebooks, clicking off the lights. Mom didn't say much when she passed by, just one sentence. I was wrong. I nodded. Not angry, not triumphant, just still. Because some wounds don't need an audience to heal. They just need space. I went back home to Missouri a few weeks later. Not to visit family, but to walk the old pasture where my dad used to stand at sunset. The house had been sold, the yard overgrown, but in the center of the land we'd placed a steel marker, part of the Institute's founding grant. It wasn't big. No statue, no flag, just a single photo. My father, arms crossed, looking toward the horizon, and beneath it, carved in steel, no one is born knowing honor, but everyone can choose it. And you know what? For the first time, I didn't feel like I had to prove anything. Not to my parents, not to the military, not to the world, because I knew who I was, and I knew I hadn't disappeared. I had just stopped asking for permission to exist. Have you ever had someone try to rewrite your story without you in it? Drop your experience in the comments, because your voice matters more than they ever let you believe. And if you've ever been told you were too quiet, too much, or not enough, hit that subscribe. You belong here, we all do.